I never thought this would happen. A killer in the romantic city of Florence kept people living in fear for over 17 years. The police arrested dozens of people, but the monster is still free and maybe still alive. I never thought this would happen. The killer was inside the police. A case that even the FBI couldn't solve. A story of serial murders, missing clues, and evidence that suddenly disappeared. At the end of the video, I have a shocking piece of evidence that might change everything you think you know about this mystery. So stay till the end. The air was hot, but its silence was colder than any winter. That night, Florence had a strange smell, a mix of dampness and gasoline. A smell later mentioned in every report. An old Fiat was parked by the road, swallowed by darkness, in the middle of a field. Even the dogs avoided that night. The girl drew shapes on the fogged-up window, her laughter echoing inside the car. The boy said, "No one comes here. Don't be scared." But just as he smiled, a shadow passed behind the glass. It wasn't from headlights. It wasn't the sound of an engine. A tall, dark shadow moved slowly, like someone afraid of their own footsteps. The boy turned his head. Nothing. Only absolute darkness. A sharp sound came from outside, like metal being sliced by a knife. The girl whispered, "What was that?" Before he could answer, gunshots broke the silence. 1, 2, 3. Each one beating like a pulse, closer to death. The window cracked. Blood splattered across the seat. The girl tried to escape, but the door was locked. A faint light caught the killer's face for a split second. A black mask, frozen eyes. No one heard their screams that night. In the morning, only a young officer found the scene. He said, "It's like the killer talked to the bodies, as if he was proud of what he did." And that's when it first appeared in an official report. Unknown killer, likely to return, but the people called him something else. The Monster of Florence. 3 years had passed since that night, but the city still couldn't sleep. The police said the case was closed, but everyone knew they were just pretending. One summer night, a newlywed couple drove out of the city near the Arno River. They parked their car, and the radio played a soft love song. Everything was calm until they heard a rustling sound. At first, they thought it was an animal, but the sound was too steady, like slow, deliberate footsteps. The girl asked, "Is someone there?" Silence. A faint beam of light flashed across the windshield. A flashlight. The boy reached for the key, but before he could turn it, gunfire shattered the night. One shot, then 2 more. The boy collapsed onto the steering wheel. The radio kept playing, "Love Means Forever." When the police arrived, They said the scene was exactly like the previous murder. Even the shell casings matched. That's when they knew it wasn't a coincidence. The killer was back, and once again, the headlines screamed his name. The Monster of Florence strikes again. Everyone wanted someone to blame, because believing the monster was still free was more terrifying than death itself. The police found a hunter, an old, reclusive man who lived alone. They said he was the killer because his rifle matched the type used in the murders. People sighed in relief. The newspapers printed, "The monster has been caught." But a young officer, the same one who'd been at the first crime scene, noticed something everyone else ignored. The timeline of the murders didn't match the hunter's arrest. In one report, it even said the man had been in prison during some of the killings. What did that mean? It meant the real killer was still out there, free, maybe even watching from behind a window right now. The officer filed a report. The next day, he was transferred out of the department. The case was closed, neat and quiet. But that same night, gunshots echoed again. The killer had returned, calmly, deliberately, to the very spot where the police had been the day before. One officer whispered, "He's mocking us." And everyone realized the Monster of Florence wasn't just a killer. He was a shadow that fed on their mistakes. From that night on, people said, if someone knocks on your door in a dream, don't answer. It might be him. The end. Before we go any further into the case, you need to know something. Up until now, you've only heard what the public was allowed to know. But from this point on, we're entering the part that was removed from the official reports. If you've already felt like the monster might be real, wait until you see what the next pieces of evidence reveal. A week after the last murder, a farmer reported seeing a strange light out in the fields one night. When the police arrived, they found something buried in the dirt. Something people would still talk about years later. A rusted metal box containing a piece of blood-stained cloth and 2 clean shell casings. But what froze everyone in place was a photograph. A photo from the scene of the very first murder, taken from an angle that only the killer could have seen. It meant he was there, with a camera, calm and deliberate. That's when they realized they weren't dealing with a madman, but with a calculating mind. The police sent the photo to the lab, but before any results came back, the file vanished. The lead detective said someone inside the system is protecting him. The next day, he was removed from the case. And from then on, every officer who tried to uncover the truth either had a heart attack or a car crash. Florence was drowning in fear, but there was something worse than the killer himself. Someone in the city who didn't want the killer to be found. After the last murder, Florence stopped breathing. The streets were empty. People locked their doors at night out of fear. But what made everything worse was the television. Every night, the same headline echoed: "The Monster of Florence strikes again." And with every word, fear crept deeper into people's homes. One night, during a live broadcast, a TV host said, "Maybe the killer is watching us right now." The words went out on air, and 10 seconds later, the screen went black. The next day, the host disappeared. Police said he went on a trip, but the people whispered he was hunted too. From that night on, the media stopped talking about the monster. But something strange began to happen. Every time the city went quiet, another murder followed. It was as if the monster fed not on blood, but on silence. A brave journalist once said, "Our fear controls us, not the killer." That same night, an envelope arrived at her office. Inside was a single .22 caliber casing and a note that read, "If you talk about me, I'll talk about you." After that day, no one dared to say his name out loud. But everyone understood something far worse than a killer was among them. A shadow living in every broadcast, every picture, every silence. When the Italian police ran out of leads, they called for help from the United States. The FBI joined the case. The same people who had hunted serial killers like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer. But this time, even they said, "What we're dealing with doesn't fit any logic." Their analysis showed the killer was trained, precise, emotionless. One agent said, "This isn't the work of a psychopath. It's the work of a mind." The American investigators mapped the murders and discovered something strange. The locations formed a perfect circle around Florence. And at the center of that circle, an old church, abandoned for years. When they entered, they found words written on the wall, in blood. "God sees me, but you don't." In that moment, everyone realized this wasn't just a murder case. It was a message to the world. A few weeks later, the FBI quietly left Italy. No reports, no explanations, just silence. A local officer said, when they left, they took a box with them, labeled "Top Secret." And from that day on, no one ever saw them again. A journalist later whispered, maybe the monster wasn't just one person, maybe he was a project. And people laughed, nervously, fearfully, because for the first time, they felt that even laughter itself might be a sin. The quieter the FBI became, the more terrified the people were, because silence meant there was something that wasn't supposed to be spoken. A few days later, a former police employee contacted a journalist. His voice was trembling. He said, "We weren't hunting someone, we were protecting." The journalist asked, "Protecting who?" He replied, "Ourselves." The call never ended. Halfway through his sentence, a gunshot was heard. That journalist disappeared the next night. Police claimed he had vanished, but his laptop was found in his office, still on, with an audio file open. A voice on it said, "They don't just kill at night. If you try to talk, they'll find you, even in daylight." That's when the conspiracy theory began. A secret network of corrupt officers, politicians, maybe even clergymen, carrying out the murders as religious sacrifices. A retired detective revealed every killing happened on nights when the main church was closed. What did that mean? It meant someone on the inside knew the schedule. After that interview, the detective crashed his car. It burned completely, but the brakes were intact. Journalists started asking questions. Then, one by one, they went silent. Some resigned, some vanished, and those who stayed said only one thing: the Monster of Florence isn't just a legend. It's a warning to the ones who dig too deep. From then on, people stopped saying the killer was a man. They said it was a living system, something that fed on fear and grew through silence. And anyone who tried to lift the curtain became the first to be hidden behind it. Up to this point, if you're still here, know that you're stepping into the darkest part of the case. The place even the police didn't dare to go near. Subscribe, because after this moment, nothing will ever be the same again. 1985. The night Florence never slept again. There was no sound that night. No birds, no wind, only a silence sharp enough to cut through the air. A young couple from Rome had come for a weekend trip. They parked their car near a field. No one knew that spot would be where everything ended. By morning, the bodies were found. But this time, it was different. The killer had arranged them like a stage scene. Precise, deliberate, almost artistic, as if he wanted to send a message. On their car, carved with a knife, were the words, "Final act complete." When the police arrived, even they froze, because at the scene, they found something that had only ever appeared in internal reports. A clean, dustless police ID card belonging to an officer who had disappeared 3 months earlier. What did it mean? It meant the monster might no longer be a shadow, but one of their own. The next day, the chief investigator held a press conference and said, "The case is closed. The killer is dead." But no body was shown, no evidence released, only silence. People wanted to believe it was over. But a week later, an envelope arrived at police headquarters. Inside, a fresh photograph. A car, another couple, posed the same way. The same signature. On the back, a single sentence: "The hunt never ends. Only the hunter changes." Florence froze again. And that's when everyone finally understood. Maybe the monster hadn't died. Maybe he'd just changed his uniform. A few weeks after the final murder, a yellow envelope arrived at a local Florence newspaper. On it was written, "For the one still searching for the truth." Inside was an old cassette tape, the kind that whirred and clicked when you pressed play. On the label, only 2 words: his voice. When the police played the tape, It began with a few seconds of silence. Then came the voice of a man, calm, cold, speaking in a thick Florentine accent. He said, "I was one of them. I saw how they told him to shoot. I saw how they burned the evidence. I saw how they sent that damned box to America." His breathing quickened. A faint rustling followed, and then another voice whispered, "Now it's your turn." The tape ended with a scream. The recordings were analyzed. The result? Neither voice could be identified. Not in police archives, not in any vocal database. It was as if neither of them had ever existed. But one expert noticed something strange. In the background, there were footsteps, echoing through what sounded like a stone hallway, a place eerily similar to the basement of the Central Police Headquarters, the section where only authorized officers could enter. The same place where the original case files had once been stored. When the investigative team went to inspect it, the basement was gone. In its place stood a freshly built concrete wall. No doors, no markings. From that day on, every officer who handled the tape either resigned or lost their mind. One of them said before disappearing, "We weren't investigating a killer. We were exposing ourselves." That same night, he died of a heart attack. After that, no one dared to even write the name Monster of Florence. The case was sealed in the National Archives with a single stamp. The truth is dangerous, but a retired officer once whispered a final line, a line the people of Florence still repeat in the dark. The monster never disappeared. He just switched places with us. The Monster of Florence case stayed closed for years. No evidence, no names, no confession, only fear, hanging in the air like the scent of blood. But years later, the internet changed everything. An anonymous channel on the dark web uploaded a video, a shaky, grainy clip of a masked man sitting in an old room. The wall behind him was covered with photos of the victims. His voice came from behind the mask, the same calm, cold tone heard on the old tape. He said, "You thought I was gone? No. I was just waiting for everyone to forget. Now it's time to come back, because you kept me alive with your fear." Police called it a hoax, but the people said it was the same voice, the same stare, the same knife on the table. A journalist from Florence claimed the video everyone saw was only 30 seconds long, but there's a longer version, and the second part, it's set to drop tonight. That night, the internet exploded with one phrase: "The monster returns, 2025 update." And once again, everyone found themselves asking the same old question. If the monster is truly dead, then who's making these videos? In the next video, we'll examine that leaked file, the forbidden clip police refuse to let the media broadcast. Why does it show a familiar face? And why does the voice sound like a current officer's? Until then, keep one question in your mind. If the monster is alive, how long has he been watching us?